Hi everybody, in this video we're going to continue the talk of the components. For this talk we're going to be in the rendering section and we're going to talk about camera. So I have a camera already here with this camera component. Clear flags is just if you want to use the skybox material that you assign or their default skybox. Now there's a solid color. It will, just choose the color from this background color section. So yeah, so you could change the color here to any color you would like. Now there's also depth only. Now depth only is if you would only want to get the depth. Let me turn off the water. So yeah, it's just if you want to get depth. I'm not sure exactly what this would be good for. Just let me know in the comments below if you guys know what this might be good for. What depth only is. Don't clear, same thing. I'm not sure what that would be. If we go to the section over here, it don't really say. It just says clear flags. It says it determines which parts of the screen will be cleared. So if you want to draw a player's gun without letting it clip inside the environment, set one camera at depth 0, another one. Okay, so it would pretty much depth only, set 1 to 0, then you would make a duplicate, set the other one to 1, and it might be, so you might have to set 1 to just the regular skybox, and then you could switch between depth right here. Maybe you guys could find some kind of use for it. It says right here you could draw a player's gun without letting it get clipped inside the environment. You just have to set 1 to 0, the other one to 1, and then set the weapon cameras, clear flags to depth only. This will keep the graphical display of the environment on the screen, but discard all information about where each object exists in world and 3D space. When the gun is drawn, the opaque parts will be completely covered. Anything drawn, regardless of how close the gun is to the wall. So, just the one that's going to be on the gun, put it to depth. And then the one that's going to be on the player, just keep it as a skybox or a solid color. There's also a don't clear. It says this mode does not clear either the color or the depth buffer. This results is that each frame is drawn over the next, resulting in a smear looking effect. This is typically not used in games and would more likely be used in a custom shader. So if we look at this and we put don't clear, so if I actually move the camera, you can see there's that little mountain in the back. And that's what don't clear is. As you saw, it's usually used for shaders. And then there's cooling masks. So let's say I have this slime and I add a layer to it. Layer, I'll call it, let's say, enemy. And I add the slime as an enemy and I change the children. When I go back to my camera, I could actually uncheck this and the enemy will not be shown. So as you can see now, my enemy is not shown, even though he's still in the scene view. If you could see this camera view down here, you can see that he is not being shown even though he's right there. So I don't know, that might be useful for something. Then there's projection. So projection is if you want it to be perspective mode, so kind of a 3D-ish mode or a 2D mode. So as you can see, it's kind of like flat, and then you could change the size. If you put it to a negative number, it flips. There's also perspective. Now perspective is a little different. It has a field of view, so you could the lower the number, the closer you get. The higher the number, the further you get. The more distorted the actual picture looks. And then there's let's see, there's also clipping planes. So clipping planes is also good for not clipping through the walls, stuff like that, so your camera won't clip the walls. So you could actually adjust these. So the near clipping plane is what's closest to the camera and the far will be the furthest to the camera. So if I adjust this, and if you look at the mountains, the lower I get, the less of the terrain should be displayed once I get to the correct amount. So as you can see, it starts clipping the terrain. I start seeing less and less of the terrain. And yeah, that's pretty much the far. If I go to the near, I could actually, clip it the other way. And then there's viewport. So let's say I want to have like a split screen. I could adjust the viewport. I could also adjust, make it into just like a small viewport. So a small camera, maybe a TV or some kind of thing like that. There's also the width and then the height. See, it adjusts the width and the height. And then there's depth. Depth, let's say you have two cameras and let's say they're both skyboxes. The one that has the highest depth will be rendered first. So this one's 0. So let me this all the way back. Now let me give this a higher depth. So see, now it's way over here. Let me move it like that and rotate it down, maybe like that. So now the highest depth gets rendered first. See, so this is an easy way of switching between cameras as well. There's rendering path. Rendering path if you want to use forward rendering, deferred rendering, legacy vertex light, or legacy deferred. So this is depending on what kind of lighting you want to use, it will adjust it, or you could use the graphic settings. Now a bunch of these you could use the graphic settings, as you can see right here. And if you go to, I think it is project settings, you could go to graphics right here, and these are the graphic settings that they're talking about. I'll go into more detail in a later video about all this, but pretty much you could set each device. So for PC, you could set it to be a certain amount of graphic quality. So you could have shadows. Let's say you could have shadows and high quality on PC, but on Android you won't have any shadows, low quality, stuff like that. And of course you could add, depending on what consoles you have. So you could have for Xbox, all that stuff. And then let's just go back. So rendering path is just how the lighting hits the environment, how the lighting hits the characters and everything in the scene. That would be rendering path. There's target texture. Target texture. One really good useful thing about target texture is for like mini maps, but you could also use it to make, let's say, like a TV or a camera, anything like that. So for that, all you would pretty much have to do is go to your assets, go to create, and go to render texture. And I already created one right here. And as you can see, I just have it as 2D. It's pretty much the default settings. So TD 256, 6, it's all the default settings. And then what you would have to do is just go to the camera and apply it to the camera. And as you can see, you could see this image. The reason for that is I created a raw image. So let me delete it. Let me create one all over again. So I created this raw image, and now all I would have to do is drag this texture into it, and as you can see, there's this little image of what my camera is seeing. So like I said, this is really useful for making mini maps. To make a mini map, all you would really have to do is go to the camera with the render texture, rotate it 90 degrees on the X, 0 on the Y, and 0 on the Z or the Z, and change this to orthographic instead of perspective. And then you could just adjust this, and you got your little mini map. Depending on how close you want it to be, you got a little mini map. And you could of course just set it to the corner, add your little border, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, that's how you would make a mini map real quick. And then let's go back to our camera. Now let's set this to none real quick. And occlusion culling is it disables rendering of objects when they are currently not seen by the camera. Because they are obscured. So if, let's say, you're not looking at an object, you can have occlusion culling, which will save on performance. So as you can see, it just disables the rendering of objects when they are currently not seen by the camera, because they are obscured or occluded by other objects. So there's HDR. So if you wanted to have high dynamic range of light, so it'll have for light brightness and all that. And there's MSAA, which is also multi-sample anti-aliasing to reduce aliasing. So you can have this also off or on depending on if you need it. And then there's also allow dynamic resolution. So if you click on it, it says it is recommended to enable frame timing statistics under rendering player settings when using dynamic resolution cameras. So if we go over here, and it says right here, enables dynamic resolution rendering. If you want to see it for details. It just says it allows you to dynamically scale individual render targets to reduce workload on the GPU. Cases where the application frame rate reduces, you can gradually scale down the resolution and to maintain constant frame rate instead. So this will allow you to actually dynamically change the resolution, the quality of the resolution. And then there's also target display, so you could have different target displays. So I think the the first one gets rendered first, and then the higher numbers get rendered last. So yeah, and then what else is there? There's another thing I wanted to show you. It was right here. When you have this on perspective, there's also physical camera if you have this checked on. Now all physical camera is pretty much the camera on a device you are porting to. So if you're porting to Android or iPhone or even a laptop, you can have different customizations for it if you need it. So if you are making like an AR game, this will be good. So you could have focal length. So the actual length, this would kind of be like the field of view. And as you can see, when I change the focal length, the field of view also gets updated as well, or vice versa. There's also sensor type. So if you guys are familiar with cameras, you guys will know what all this is. But if you want to have a certain sensor type, like 8mm, 70mm IMAX, there's also the Super 35. I'm not really sure what all these are, but I'm pretty sure anybody that uses a computer will know what they are. You can also change it automatically or manually, and it will customize it for you. And depending on your sensor size, your lens shift, and all that, your field of view and your focal length will adjust as well. You could also have gate fit. So depending on what kind of game you're making, if you're going to make it vertically, horizontally, if you want this whole thing to be as filled as possible, or if you want to overscan it, so get as much of the scene as possible. And then you can also have none. And then yeah, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys liked it or learned anything from it. If you guys did, hit that like button. I would really appreciate it. It really mean a lot to me, and I would know that you guys are getting some use out of these videos. And I just want to thank all the subscribers so far. It really means a lot to me. Keeps me motivated. Like there is times that I really didn't want to make a video, but just seeing the subscribers leave those likes and you guys subscribing, I know you guys are getting some kind of use out of these videos. So once again, thank you guys, and see you guys in the next video.